So welcome, Jan.
Thank you for having me, Karen. It's
Hi.
awesome to get back together again. I love talking to you.
I know it's a fair while between drinks, actually, isn't it? Not that we even drink. I don't
Yeah.
think I've ever had a drink with you.
Well, I don't drink, so I'd be pretty boring. I'm one of those people who can have a really, really good time as if I'm drunk without any booze on board.
Me
Yeah,
too. Me too. I'm a
yeah.
20 cent date. I am. I don't know if that's such a
I
thing
don't
anymore.
actually, I don't actually think I would survive drinking because I'm capable of having so much fun without it that I can't imagine how unsafe I would be if I
Oh,
if I was loaded. I reckon I'd be, yeah, not very safe to be around. Yeah.
I know a lot of people who have a wine every night or two wines every night. I have one red wine occasionally. Someone will get out, we'll go out for dinner or something. A red wine. I'm like, yeah. And I fall asleep. I'm absolutely bloody shocking.
Well, if benzos are any indication on me, when I was having chemotherapy, they gave me benzodiazepam or benzos. And I did the benzos. I was up all night. I was so jacked up I could have held up a 7-Eleven. I tell you, I was I was buying shit all night, and then all this stuff starts turning up to the door. And it was during COVID, so it was like lockdown central. And my husband goes, "What's all this crap that's arriving at the door?" It was parcel after parcel, and some of it was double ups and triple ups of the same thing. I was buying. This skirt turned up, and my daughter Bronte says to me, "Mum, you would never have bought that skirt." And she goes, "But it's got my name all over it, so thank you very much." That was $750. She goes, "How did you find your way onto the website?" So then at night time, they started taking my wallet out of the room so that I couldn't go on the Benzos.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
so if that's any indication, I don't know what I've built on
No,
alcohol.
no, I don't think we need that alcohol.
No, we don't need that vision. Yeah,
Shit. God, that's hilarious. Oh, shit.
yeah.
Now I'm going to try and talk about something serious. Jesus. All
Yeah,
I can see is
it can
you.
be serious, but you can still have a laugh even about serious stuff. In fact,
I
if I didn't
know.
have a sense of humour, I would not survive the work that I do. Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And the work you do, as I mentioned in the intro, is about eating disorders, which is, I think, well, there's a couple of things I want to say. One, I think it's really misunderstood. Two,
Yeah.
it's really hard to get the right help, which you're doing, but it's also uh, uh, it's like an it's almost like an invisible thing. Do you know? You don't know it's there until it's sort of too
Yeah.
late. That's a really it's a
Well, eating disorders tend to fly under the radar.
yeah.
So, if we were to say roughly 8% of the female population have got some form of eating disorder or disordered eating, I'd say if we said around 80% of people don't feel okay about their bodies would be a really accurate place to start. So
Mm,
we live in a culture where we're pretty much told that we need to look a certain way to be worthy.
yeah.
And it's a real challenge, particularly with kids,
Mm,
to teach them that, you need to do you. Don't
mm,
worry about what the next person's doing. That's easier said than done. When you're young, you want to fit in with the crowd, you want to belong. And so you're constantly masking your way through life and trying to adapt to the changing situation. Let's be honest. I gave up on my body, I don't know, 30 years ago when I said, look, it's going to do what it's going to do. And I'm going to be a lover, not a fighter. And I'm just going to let it go where it wants to go. And to tell you a funny story, I was going to a wedding in Perth, and I used to keep my good clothes up at the farm because we lived in a tiny little place down in Melbourne. And I said to my husband, when you're up at the farm, can you get me that blue dress? And he says, you mean the one you wore to Bronte's wedding? And I said, yep. And he goes, oh, good luck with that. As he's heading out the door. And I'm like, well, what are you saying specifically? And he goes, look, it's up to you if you want to try and force yourself into it, but I don't think it's going to be a happy experience. Well, I couldn't even get out my arms. It just wouldn't even go any further. But that's how unaware I was, because I like my body. I don't have an issue with it. I don't see my body in a shameful way. I don't actually ever really look at myself in any way other than
It
"Look,
is.
I'm good today, Jan. That's pretty okay." In fact, I think it might have been the fault of the mirror at our house in Melbourne, because I'd get out of the shower and I'd go, "You look amazing." And then I saw myself in a different mirror one day and I went, "That mirror's lying. I know what I look like." Anyway, it turned out we had one of those skinny mirrors, that made you look really good. But occasionally I'll catch a glimpse of myself in a mirror and I go, is that what you actually look like? And it's not the picture I have in my head.
Yeah.
But I realise I'm just really comfortable in my skin and I just don't have any issues with my body. But that's quite rare.
It is rare, yeah.
Amongst females to always be thinking about the way other people view you and see you. And when you're younger, it's really important that that's positive. And so constantly trying to, I don't know, craft yourself into someone that you're probably not meant to be. Yeah.
Well, it's dangerous in so many ways, and not just eating disorders, just in so many ways, to pretend to feel the need to be something that you're not. Well, first of all, I was going to say, how many of the people that come through door 2 are young? I'm interested in that question, and then I want to know what door 2 is.
Well, we've got everyone. So to go back a little bit, not everybody who goes on a diet, and let's be honest, that's almost everyone at some point in their life, is going to develop an eating disorder.
Yeah.
The ones who are most likely going to are your very perfectionistic, high-achieving, competitive, sensitive, people-pleasing, black and white thinking, very persistent high achievers, attention to detail. They're our school captains, they're our kids. I can walk into a school and pick them out, but I can also walk into the Olympic team and pick them out. So when they go into energy deficit, the energy deficit that comes with any diet that you go on, it triggers something in their DNA that switches on all of these genes, and not in a good way. So now I'm in the Olympics for weight loss and I'm going to be bloody good at it, right? So I'm perfectionistic, high-achieving, competitive, and I'm going to compare myself to everyone else, and I'm going to keep going with that number and push that down, because I now can't stop, because I'm black and white in the way I see my success. I'm driven to succeed. I've got attention to detail. I need certainty and predictability. These are all, we call them our ducks. But most of all, I can persist. I can win Survivor. I can out-survive. I can outlast. I can outplay you. So now that my mind has switched on to that, I can't let that go. And that can become deadly very, very quickly. And then when we try to get treatment in there, you've basically got these ducks and this mind determined to achieve what it set out to achieve. And now you've got treatment coming on the other side and saying, well, no, you won't. And what's stuck in the middle is this self, this person who says, all I wanted to do was be me, and somehow I'm in this terrible conflict now. And it gets very, very out of control, or can get very out of control very quickly. So we've got kids of 7 through to women of 55. We've got boys, we've got people who are struggling with their gender identity, trying to figure out who they are. We've got everyone in door 2, because door 2 is this amazing community of people who are, well, I'm very grateful to be part of them, but it's this beautiful, inclusive community who just cares deeply for one another. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from. It's like that song, Who You Are, that Backstreet Boys song, Who You Are, what house you live in, whatever you do, you're welcome in door 2.
Wow. I tell you what, that's very unusual in any part of society, to have a whole even there's a lot of places that say they're very inclusive. And not churches. But anyway, but
well, I grew up in one of those, and I can tell you right now, they're not.
No,
The one
I
I
know.
grew up in with was not. I remember going to the bishop of my church when I discovered that people of colour couldn't join the church, and I said, I've just heard this. And he said, well, you just lack obedience and you ask too many questions. And I said, but I can't accept this. Now, I'm a child of the 50s, so this was in the sort of like late 60s, where I went and said, is this true that people, African-American people can't join the Mormon church? And he said, yeah, that's absolutely true, because they carry the mark of Cain. I go, what's that? And he said, well, they're dark skinned. And I said, but Jesus was black. And he said, how do you know that? And I said, look on the map. Look where he came from. Like, I'm pretty sure he was olive. And when he went outside, he probably didn't need a lot of sunscreen. And I went, I don't understand. And every question I asked was met with, well, you just need to accept, Jan. You ask too many questions and you're not obedient, and that's your problem. And I could not accept it. And then when I found out that people who were homosexual were excommunicated from the church, that was the enemy. I just went, I can't do this religion that preaches equality and unconditional love when everything is conditional. And then when I ask a question, I'm told that I'm disobedient and I need to just accept. So I've always been a rebel, Karen.
Well, I'm glad you've always been a rebel, and I'm glad you are disobedient because because let's go back to door 2. It's like that sort of forms part of it. Your disobedience, is a I know it started from your daughter, and you can tell us that story. But you weren't getting the answers that you wanted, which is you keep asking, keep being disobedient until finally you say, well, screw the lot of you. I'm going to start something of my own, because you're not giving me the answer. So there's a lot of people who are obedient, and sort of fall into the, well, you know best, I'll just obey, I'll just do what you tell me to do because you're the professional and I should be submissive to you. And it doesn't pay off very often. So
well, I fell for that for a nanosecond, a little bit longer than a nanosecond, but I think it was more the fact that Bronte got very unwell very quickly and needed hospitalisation.
And Bronte's your daughter, just to clarify.
Bronte's my daughter. She's now 40-something. I've lost track. But she was 15.
Yeah.
Back then, that would have been the typical onset age for an eating disorder. My older daughter, Samantha, she was doing medicine and she said, Mum, Bronte's got an eating disorder. And I said, oh, don't be ridiculous. And she said, no, I'm watching and I'm seeing it. And she was the one that picked it up. She wasn't learning about in medicine, but she was mindful of behaviours.
Mm.
And so at first I was not even sure myself. We went to the GP, said, yeah, I think she's got an eating disorder. Had no idea what it was. Off we go to the hospital. I was relieved. I went, they're going to tell us what to do here. And I sat there on the chair waiting for the doctors to come in and say, right, there's an operation or there's a tablet or we're going to do this or we're going to do that. And then it became aware that they didn't know what to do. And I felt really terrified as the days went by and they couldn't tell us anything and things were escalating and getting very out of control. I started to panic inside myself when I realised we're kind of on our own here. We're all at sea without a port. These people don't have any idea what they're doing. They've got no more idea than I've got, actually. And all the time in university hadn't actually taught them anything. My kid was a science project. And the one thing that I didn't like was the judgment and the cruelty. And we had some terrible experiences in the hospital with people thinking that she could choose a different behaviour. But it's a mental illness by this stage. And they were treating her as if she was a naughty girl. And this is a kid who'd never left my side and was the most obedient, people-pleasing person you'd ever come across. And all of a sudden, she wasn't anymore. And I was confused by that, but I certainly wasn't going to let the hospital take it out on her and treat her as if she was a naughty child, because she just wasn't. So I went to war with the doctors and the nurses and everyone. I said, no, you don't get to treat her that way. And when one registrar one day said, well, what I'm going to do is, like she's not complying, so I'm going to take her coloured pencils away and I'm going to put her hair in a rubber band and give her hospital issue pajamas and shut the blind and cut her off in the world until she just agrees. And I said, you've learnt this where? And he said, well, we've got to try something. And I said, no, she's not a guinea pig. And he said, well, that's it. We made this decision. And I said, well, you can't stop me reading a book to her. And he said, well, yes, we can. We can get the security guards. I said, go for it. And I sat there and read James Herriot dog stories to her as loud as I could, so everyone heard them, for 10 hours, till finally security came and escorted me from the hospital for reading my kid a story. So
wow.
we ended up, we knew that she would die if we stayed here. So we went to Canada for 4.5 years. And it was during that time that I started to really learn about what went on inside the mind of a person who was going through this experience. And that's kind of where it started. Yeah.
Wow. And so when you went to Canada, what was the difference? Like, why Canada?
Well, we basically,
and
there was nowhere in Australia that could handle her behaviours. They were pretty extreme. And so, well, they were very extreme, and she would have died. There was no way we could keep her alive here. We didn't know enough. We didn't understand enough. She gave us little glimpses into her mind, but not enough for me to be able to really counterspin what was going on in there. And also, we didn't have the manpower to do 24 one-on-one supervision and support, and that's what she needed. So that's basically what we bought ourselves by going to Canada. And it was not a cheap exercise, Karen. It cost us $750,000 in 1996.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Which we had to foot the bill for. There was no support. There was no crowdfunding. It was just, you do this if you want your child to make it. And it was after that I said, we can't have families going overseas and having to resort to these extreme measures. So we opened up our first drop-in centre. We chucked a pencil case in the middle of the table and chuck in a couple of bucks and we'll put some coffee on for you. And it turned into a mosh pit in about 6 weeks. Wow. I didn't know what I was doing, but I realised now what I was being was kind and unconditional in our love and support for the families going through the same thing. And we said we'll figure it out together, and we did.
And how long was that? Was that in the 90s when you opened up that drop-in centre?
Our very first drop-in centre we opened up in 2000.
Yeah.
We became the Bronte Foundation in 2003. We grew to become Australia's largest service provider by 2007. And then we were acquired by a major health network, and they turned us into, a mainstream delivery service. And it was at that point that I went to war again and said, hang on a minute, this isn't how we do things. But what I learned was you can't transition something as different as what we did at Bronte Foundation into a mainstream health service. They're not the same animal. It's like trying to mate a pig with an elephant. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
They're different species. So
did you stay with that mainstream provider?
I did. I stayed there for about 18 months. I at that point, I did a keynote plenary speech at a big international conference, and my talk was on social recovery, and I told the story of Sarah, one of the incredible young women I'd had the privilege of working with at the Bronte Foundation. She was on palliative care, and our team worked to get her out of palliative care and recovered. She's now a mum of 2 young girls that she's done all on her own as a single mum.
Wow.
And I told that story. And after I told that story, I walked down and I rang Graham and said, I'm done. I'm finished with eating disorders. I'm done. And I needed to take a break. I really did. So I stepped away from it for a while because it was all now safely in the public health system and going swimmingly, supposedly, but not really. And I felt a bit like I can't fight this behemoth. I can't make the system change. And at that point, you know, startups weren't heard of and entrepreneurship wasn't heard of, and there wasn't the opportunity to do what we've done now. So I took a breather and I asked myself what I wanted to be when I grew up, and wrestled with my soul a bit. Thought I might want to go and work at a shop, wear some shiny jewelry, that I'm attracted to sparkly things.
Yeah.
And thought maybe that will make me happy and feel complete. That lasted about, I don't know, 6 months, because you might have figured I've got ADHD, till I came up with the next bright idea. And I decided maybe I'll just be a consultant who flies around Australia and goes into people's homes and troubleshoots. And that's what I did for 10 years.
Wow.
I just would fly from state to state to state, sometimes 3 states a day, sometimes Perth and back in a day. Never advertised. People, word of mouth, people would find out. You can get Bronte Cullis's mum to come into your home and she'll sort it out for you. And that's what I did. I just, for 10 years, I went and worked in families' homes and loved it. And then everyone recovered. And I went, well, it's probably a good time to retire now. So I bought myself a farm in Gippsland and sat myself down on the porch with a cup of coffee, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, but hang on, I'm missing a bit. So the Bronte Centre went to a public, to a, you know, out into the.
Yeah.
But did you ever acquire that back, or is it still out?
No, it was well and truly acquired. All the assets were transferred over, and it was meant to be a standalone unit within this major health network, but it couldn't be. Even though we did 18 months of due diligence to look at, is this possible? It just can't. It can't, because of the medical, legal, procedural logistics of a public health system. It couldn't have a rogue agent inside it, like the Bronte Foundation or Door 2, where we hug everyone who comes in the room and they're an equal. It just doesn't work. There's a power discrepancy in the public health system, with power without power, doctor without doctor.
Yeah.
I tell you what to do, you do what I tell you to do, you follow the rules, sort of thing. We never did that. We sat as equals with our families. We had armchairs with layback chairs in the office where the mothers could come in with a cup of coffee, and they just could not integrate it. They said, how can you do this? And we went, oh, we just do. We're just being human, and we're sitting with people in the poo. And if they're in the poo, we're in the poo with them. And then we'll all get out of the poo together, but not one of us is getting out of the poo and leaving the other one in the poo. And they just couldn't wrap their head around it and went, it just doesn't work that way.
So did it close down? Did it finish up?
It's still going, but in a very different form. It's been turned back into what you would expect in a very mainstream setting. So, I mean, it was sad, and that was it was a real lesson for me that you're a bit different, Jan. And what you think can be just can't be in the mainstream system. And it's why, as an educator, I was always a bit out there as well. Like, I really would like to just take the class out in the bush and just go learn out there and not sit in a classroom. But that isn't how life works. So for me, I was always going to have to create a different pathway for myself.
So then you started Door 2, like, was that after you had your cup of coffee on the porch and went, you know, I've got ADHD, I can't sit here any longer?
Well, I built fences, I gardened, I was giving the cows haircut, they were running away from me, like there's that woman again with the clippers trying to give me a buzz cut and make me look cute for a photo. I think it wasn't enough, right? I just always need to be helping people. I need to be in with people in the dirty, filthy muck of life. That's where I'm happiest.
Yeah.
Sitting in amongst it. And I went to the council and I said, look, this is who I am. And they went, oh, no, we have psychologists. And I went, right, well, we know who you are. And I tried all the schools around here and they all told me to get nicked. So I came home, felt a bit sorry for myself, but I kept reaching out. And I found Women in Gippsland, someone from Women in Gippsland, and she said, oh, there's this new group starting up called Startup Gippsland. You need to talk to them. So I did an incubator course with them. I used to say to Graham, I'm going to do my startup course. He goes, startup what? You've started up so many. I said, why? When are you going to stop? And I said, he says, what are you making? What are you doing? I said, I don't know. And I would sit there every week in this course and they'd say, what's your idea, Jan? I go, I don't know. It's not coming to me. I think it's online stuff around eating disorders. And everyone looked at me like, are you crazy? It was not a well thought out idea.
I didn't think you were crazy.
No.
I didn't think you were crazy.
Well, when we met down, that was the accelerator course that I did.
Phillip Island, yeah.
Yeah, and when we met, I still didn't have an idea, but it hatched that night, sitting down talking to Dave Humphreys from Tiny Gardener.
Yeah.
And he says to me, why do you want to do this? And I said, I don't know, Dave. And he was very loud and he was very drunk and he's yelling at me across the table. And he was trying to get me to crystallize an idea in my head and say, what is this thing? And I couldn't wrap my head around it. And then Steve got me and Elena got me and they all said, look, maybe you're not up for this, Jan. And, oh, you just don't say that to me. You just don't say maybe you need to quit. And I went, oh, stuff the lot of you. I'll show you, because that's how I've always done it in life. When people say you can't do something, I go, oh, well, we'll see about that, won't we? That is my persistent, perfectionistic, high-achieving, compete and compare duck that goes up yours. So I just went, I've got to talk to someone who's sensible, and that's Rachel Bradford, most beautiful dietitian in Brisbane. I rang her up on the way home and I said, I'm so frustrated. I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, Jan, you need to start with education for families. And I went, okay. And we sort of talked about it. And I came back the next day and I had my idea. And Steve goes, it's like a transformation. We don't understand. You left here yesterday, you were angry and head down. And today you've turned up like a phoenix rising. You've got your idea and there you go. So I went on and during that time I was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer and had to have all the treatment and everything. So I kind of got in the middle, but I went on and won that pitch because I think I had the most put together idea enough to be able to speak about a potential product that I had. Yeah. And that product was a 6-week course for families.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking 6 weeks would be enough, but we ran that 6-week course and I came up with this idea. Well, what if I ask people who have eating disorders, who I've worked with, to come in and to teach the families or be a mentor for the families, so that families could ask them, well, tell me about your experience. So I came up with this novel idea, not so novel, but of insider-led recovery, where people on the inside, we called them insiders, would lead their own recovery, but teach other people's parents, well, this is what it's like for me. And I was like, of all the crazy ideas I've ever come up with, this has got to be probably the most scary, because I had no idea what they were going to say or how the parents were going to receive them, but they just fell in love with each other.
Wow.
Those families just sat there and cried and wrapped their arms around these beautiful mentors. And these mentors just reached out to these families and said, you didn't know, it's not your fault. Don't be hard on yourself. And that was where our absolute inclusion and equality came into door 2, where we went, doesn't matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, we don't care. You're here now. Let's learn together and let's talk around the table, pass the peace pipe round and just let things go. Lots of things have gone wrong along the way to getting here. It's what we do once you get here, how we heal those wounds, put those relationships back together. So families come in very broken but they don't stay broken for long because the Door 2 community wraps their arms around them, and then we've got such great programs now. So what started with me with a cup of coffee was a phone call from Audrey's mother, Violetta, who's call her the Mad Macedonian. She's not taking no for an answer, and she knows where you live and she's coming to find you. And so I said, all right, I'll help you, Violetta, but don't tell anyone. And so Audrey was my first client back out of retirement, and Audrey works as a mentor in Door 2.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, she's just this week finishing off her undergraduate studies in philosophy, and she's just been given a scholarship to Monash University next year to study bioethics.
Wow.
And she's going to write her thesis on epistemic injustice.
Wow. Wow.
Watch this space. The woman's taken over the world.
Wow.
And fuck is her favourite word. You know,
Stuck.
It's a powerful word. Fuck.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Fuck. Fuck you, Jen. Yeah. So at the age of 67, this year we've grown again. We've now got 6-7 staff on, well, their team. Everyone chooses their own role. They choose the way they work. They choose their own hours. Everyone's got lived experience, either often with both, with neurodiversity and a eating disorder. And just about everyone in Door 2 is someone I have worked with over the last 20 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Some of them are my clients who've recovered, who now want to be there because they want to be part of this amazing community. But most of all, it's just a really safe space and a home for people to come to when they're wounded and overwhelmed. And I'm very grateful to have been given the opportunity to build it, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without ADHD.
I love it.
I just wouldn't have been able to do it.
So is it a physical space?
No, it's all online.
It's all online. Yeah.
All online. So my initial thought when I went to that very first incubator course was, hey, could you do this online? Could you connect online? Is it possible to actually form a human connection with someone? And back then Zoom wasn't a thing, so it was really FaceTime. Can you hold a camera here and talk to someone and get them to talk to you and open up their heart to you? Yeah. And I discovered, well, you can.
Yeah.
But you've got to be human. It's not going to work if you sit there and tell a person what to do. You've got to connect with them. So our cornerstones, really our pillars, are connection, trust, honesty, and accountability. They're the 4 things that surround us all the time, and we're always examining what we're doing. Is there judgment here? If there is, put it out. Yeah. If you're allowing judgment to come into your work, then you're not the best person to support others. You need to step back, and you need to have great empathy and imagine, well, what is it like for that person? We'll ask them to tell me. Well, they're not going to tell you until they feel that connection and they trust you. They're just not going to. I'm going to tell you what's going on inside their mind. I have been accused of being a mind reader, and I often bring my crystal ball out on the screen, which is hugely amazing because if you push a button, all the fairy lights go on in it.
One of them.
Yeah, I know. It works a treat.
We do have one of those.
But Karen, I have just met some of the best people ever doing this work. I've met young people who I know, if I was at school with them, they would be my best friend. Just love and adore them. Just incredible human beings who have touched my soul. So when you come at supporting someone from that premise, you can't get it wrong.
No.
You really can't. You've just got to sit there, listen, validate, and then say, how can I help?
How does it take, when people come in, join your community, And then I know there's got to be a little bit of time, you know, adjusting to that trust. You know, I feel really safe now. Like that, so that could be. Oh, what are you doing? Got your headphones on?
I put my headphones on because I live in a tin shed, and someone came in downstairs. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I can't hear. So like people are going to build the trust, but once they're sort of feeling safe and they're feeling like, yeah, I belong in this community, how long does it take? Yeah. Generally speaking, I know it's different for every single person. It can never be the same. But as a general rule, how long does it take people to start to, and it's not just a case of change their eating habits. Like that's not it. It's the whole change of who I am, what, you know, all that stuff, the internal.
Well, for starters, eating disorders aren't about food. They're about a way of coping with life that is overwhelming. So they're I'm checking out card. Just letting you know, it's all a bit much for me. I'm out.
Yeah.
And so, number one, you've got to figure out where that person's at. Now, often the families come in and their insider is in denial or doesn't want to have a bar of it. That doesn't scare us because we know their insider listens through the crack in the door.
Yeah.
Or will often listen to the podcast, and we just say to the families, step back, give them space, you know, change your language in the way you invite them into this space. Don't tell them they need to do this or they need to do that because that's a demand of them that they're not going to respond to. Leave it with them. Like the Mormons, you know, leave the Book of Mormon there. They might pick it up later on, read it and join the church. You never know. So, you know, I did learn something. So it's about giving people alternate ideas, but also staying and supporting and giving them time and space to be able to process that information. A lot of people who develop eating disorders are like me, have got a neurodiverse mind, have got a lot going on in their mind, and they need that space to be able to think about it. So we teach families, do not panic. You've got a world-class healthcare system over there that will back you up. While you're learning this new language and thinking about this differently, what we want you to do is really start to gently try and have these conversations with your insider. Now, normally they get told to get fucked. Basically, it's none of your business. That doesn't scare us. That's just saying, I'm not prepared to be vulnerable yet because how can I know that you're someone I can trust? I don't know that. So we need to give them time and space and build that trust. And I would say most times within 3 months, we've got the insider in and they're participating.
Wow.
So last Wednesday night, we ran a session called Table Talk. Never done it before. Typical us. Came up with this genius idea and I said, how about we do this?
Yeah.
So we come in, I'm going to give you a topic. You've got to go away and discuss it in your group. So insiders over there, parents there. And you're going to come up with your answers to these questions and we're going to come back and share them. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a scenario where you feel all these really negative emotions and we identify what happens when people make arbitrary decisions without our voice being represented. What does it feel like when no one asks you but just tells you what's going to happen? So we did that exercise and the emotions they expressed were betrayal, hurt, anger, you know, all the negative ones.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, your kid wants to go off with their friend for 2 weeks camping. They've got an eating disorder and you know that can. You've got to negotiate with them the terms of that. So off went the insiders, off went the parents. The parents were really like, oh, I don't want to tread on their rights and, you know, that's a real tough one. And the insider said, oh, I'm a bit scared going away without parent supervision. So it was interesting because then they came back and shared that. And then they built a framework for support of how those insiders could safely go. Wow. They loved it.
Wow.
They absolutely loved it. And I went, sure, that went well. Could have gone any direction because it was just one of my crazy ideas that I came up with and went, well, and I actually said to the group, this could be a total shit show or it could be a genius move. Let's see how it goes.
I love it.
I always come at it from the viewpoint of education. We've got something to learn here.
Yeah.
And let's go and see if we can learn this together and figure it out together. And so that's now part of our repertoire. People love table talk. And a mum today, we have a group on Tuesdays called Stuck. The parents in that call themselves Stuckers. And they're stuck in what they're in, and we come together, and it's an informal thing. And one of the mums said, I want you to know that my daughter, who is mute and has not uttered a word in 2 years, has this week opened up and been talking to me because of table talk.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. So it's not rocket science.
No, but that's the whole point, isn't it? It's just about compassion and bloody love and acceptance and caring and all the fluffy stuff that people don't believe in. You know that we've got to have all these other fancy bloody formulas. You know.
Yeah. No.
Wow.
And what she needed was a platform to find her voice and a safe environment to be able to talk, and no pressure on her. Now she's been in the mainstream system for 2 years.
Wow.
Extremely unwell, extremely unsafe a lot of the time, unable to speak, unable to communicate, but with the help of daughter is finding her voice. We've got another one, Freddie. She'll be happy for me to tell this story because she's on the podcast. She was in inside a locked ward for 14 months. She went in as a 12-year-old.
Oh, Jesus.
She came out as an almost 14-year-old, and the horrors she experienced in there were beyond what anyone could ever imagine. She had this amazing psychiatrist at the Royal Children's. Oh, incredible. And then another amazing psychiatrist who reached out to us with the mum and said, we don't know what to do here, because she was being held down by security guards twice a day to have a tube put down her nose. She didn't speak. She was being traumatised twice a day. And this psychiatrist took me in there one day and showed me the trolley, and I burst into tears and she burst into tears. She said, take a moment to process your emotions, but we're doing this to a 13-year-old to keep her alive. But we're traumatising her to the extent where I don't know if she can live. You know, like we're in this terrible situation. So we got involved, and we worked together with the family, with the Royal Children's, and after 14 months, she came home on the 16th of January this year.
Wow. Wow.
She's an extraordinary young person. She's 14 and a half now. And she's on the podcast, so you can come and listen to Freddie. Now, we don't go into a lot of detail because the story is so brutal and graphic. You can't really do it justice in a podcast. But she told me to get fucked a lot at the beginning. Get out of my room and don't come back. And she says to me now, but now I love you, because I had to learn. She said, you scared my negative mind, because my vulnerable mind knew that you could see the wrong of me. And that was scary, that you might be able to expect of me something that I didn't know I could do yet.
Wow.
So
that's deep.
Oh, these are incredible human beings, Karen, who, when you have a conversation with them, you go, and you're 14?
I know.
The things they care about, the things they think about, that's what I mean. I'm so privileged to know them. I wanted to know them when I was 14. I wanted to have them as a friend when I was 14. I've got one, Ashley. She's on the podcast. I just go, oh, Ashley, I would have killed to have you as a bestie. And she goes, I'll be your bestie now, Jan. Don't worry. We can hang out together.
I love that. But it's when you say the brilliant minds and the brilliant things that come out of their mouth, it's actually the basis to all this is the world's letting them down. That the world's just there's no place available to be thinking on those levels and having conversations on those levels. I mean, of course there is, but they're not accessible. They're not easy to find for people.
Well, when you're 14, you can't join the philosophy course at Melbourne University yet.
No,
but you should. because that's where you'll feel most at home. So I can't ring up Melbourne Uni and go, look, I've got a genius here called Freddie. She needs to come and do advanced philosophy with you. They'd say, well, she'll need to go through high school, get an ATAR, get into the course, and really she just needs to go and do philosophy.
Oh, do you know how many amazing kids I work with around the world, that are so young, and they are brilliant. And I don't know why universities and places like that don't have junior forums or something, you know what I mean, where we've got such a rigid bloody education system, and I'm not just saying education, but the education system forms all the decisions we make in the way, the structure of life and the structure of
look, I managed to fail my way through school, Karen. I failed as a monitor on patrol. I couldn't figure out the stop sign and nearly got everyone run over. I failed as a checkout chick at Coles in the 1970s. I charged someone $14 for a frozen chook. I don't even think they're that yet. I failed my way through school, right? Completely failed. In my VCE, I got 50, 51, 52, 53, and 54 out of 100 for each subject. And my mother said, at least you're consistent. Because that was the best that I could do in mainstream school, because I wasn't present in the classroom. I was either dreaming that I was in Wuthering Heights or I was creating a company in my head that I was going to create, or I was on a stage in a play. I was an opera singer. I was anywhere but in that classroom. And then I'd come back to life. I'd reconnect with my body and go, what just happened? And it was a double in maths, and I wasn't present for it.
Yeah.
But I went on to do a master in education at Monash University, and I went all the way because I knew that, and I started my PhD at Monash, and I knew that if I wanted to be someone who effected change, I had to have qualifications to be able to say that I've got the right to do so.
Yeah.
But I have been absolutely, look, I think Jesus Christ had an easier time of it than me, to be honest. Trying to break into what is a medical world or a clinical world, the rejection, the treatment of mainstream service providers has been brutal. And it hasn't just been brutal for 1 year, it's been brutal for 20, 23 years. So shame on everyone who sits out there and says someone who's not from their race or their group could not possibly know anything, because that is the very definition of discrimination.
Yeah.
To say, how could you possibly know anything worthwhile? You're not one of us. No, I'm not one of you. I don't want to be one of you. My own daughter's one of you. She's a doctor, but she respects what I do because she knows that if someone has an eating disorder, I'm probably the one person who could reach into their soul and find them and speak to them. You don't go to uni to learn how to do that.
No.
You're never going to learn that at any mainstream course. So, yes, I needed to go to university to become qualified, to speak with some sort of authority, but I shouldn't have had to do that.
No.
And that's actually what's wrong with our world, is that we're absolutely snobs when it comes to qualifications, and we don't look at the incredible work that happens in those peripheral ancillary areas where people do incredible work that is life-changing. So if you are Yogi the Bear and in Yellowstone Park, you have discovered that by climbing a tree and whistling Dixie out of your arse, you can cure an eating disorder. I want to know about that.
Yeah.
But the mainstream system won't. It will say, where's the empirical evidence? So as a result, or two had to go and become evidence-based treatment, which we have now done. So we keep going back to the mainstream system and saying we need to qualify ourselves here in order to be allowed to exist. And that's wrong. That is just plain ordinary wrong. I think what's really sad is that it's hard and lonely carving a path alongside others and them not playing nicely with you and saying, oh, that's that weird girl over there that does things differently. But this time it hasn't been lonely. I have this incredible community around me who love me, support me. I love them right back. And we're growing in numbers every single day. And I think actually it is the tipping point of that lived experience of whatever it is that you're in, whether it's your gender journey, your race journey, your not neurodiverse journey, whatever you're in. If you're different and you've been excluded, you just need to find your tribe, your group of people who are going on that same path with you and support one another. And that's what Door 2 is. It's got a lot of great resources in it. If one thing I am is my ADHD means I'll sit up all night writing programs and making up jazzy new groups. We roll out groups every week. We roll out about 40 individual sessions a week. We do more than any of the big organisations, the big not-for-profits in Australia.
How do people access your services? How do they get hold of you? And
well, you just email help@door2.com.au and you'll hear back from us right away.
Yep. And anyone can come?
Anyone can come. We're a pretty cheap service. We have a fee for membership because that's how we funded ourselves. Instead of going down that old chestnut of not-for-profit, which everybody does, and you're all competing for a piece of non-existing pie, we explored that social enterprise model or a profit for purpose model in order to generate revenue so that we could help people. So we're a membership model. But families are funded through Carer Gateway because Carer Gateway have recognised that we're very niche and we're very needed.
That's good.
And so now we do carer coaching, one-on-one carer coaching. We do individual psychology sessions with insiders, but that's taken by an insider herself who's recovered with me for 14 years. And is now a psychologist. We've got insider guides, so people who are inside an eating disorder experience who can share their experiences with others. We have groups for insiders, groups for carers, and we meet every week. There's a 2-hour webinar or group every week, plus a support group every week, plus individual sessions.
Wow.
So people can access us through their NDIS, they can access us through Carer Gateway, or they can just join as a private citizen. And the joining fee for 12 months to access everything at all is $1,750.
Geez, that's cheap. And then that's good for a year.
Well, they work out to $30 a group.
Yeah, that's
right.
Great.
So even if you didn't bother with Carer Gateway, a session with a psychiatrist, a one session will cost you between $600 to $800.
Yeah.
So you get to come and hang out with us for the whole year for less, like 2 sessions with a psychiatrist. And we know not everyone can access that, and that's where Carer Gateway comes in. That's where NDIS comes in. We've also got Medicare rebates for psychology. So our hope is that everyone can find a way to fund themselves into Door 2. Individual sessions, of course, are charged at individual rates, but they're also funded under Carer Gateway and NDIS and Medicare. So we've tried really hard to bring about a really sustainable model of care for everyone. And every single cent that we earn goes back in to grow it.
That's really cheap. I think that's cheap. It's I know that it's hard for some families to get. I know that to get that money, but when you think about your loved one's life, like it's and the success that you're having, that you do have success with them, and it's like you paid $750,000. So I'm just looking at this son. It's by driving mad. So 1,700 is I think that is invaluable for what you get. And you get your person. You get your person, you know,
well, you get your person, you get your people, you get your crowd, you get your everything.
yeah.
We've got people who joined us on that initial 6-week program. They're still with us. Some of them have recovered, but they're still with us because they just love us so much. They come in to hang out. And we have a really fun time at Door 2 as well. We do quizzes somewhere for our second birthday. The prize was a home visit by Jan. I said, I don't know if that's actually a prize. For some people might not want that, but a family in Adelaide won that. So I flew to Adelaide and hung out for the day with them and spent time with them. And we try really hard to make recovery not drudgery, but something that we can work on together and support one another together. We've got a lot of people with autism and ADHD and neurodiversity, and just starting to get our first crop of 13-year-old boys through.
Oh, wow.
Which is really fantastic because for so long, males with eating disorders feel that there isn't anywhere for them to go. It's a very female-dominated space. And we're really starting to get our gender diverse ones through now, which is exciting for us, really exciting, because they're new challenges for us to learn together and sit with them in their space and have them explain to us what it feels like for them and for us to really listen and try to respond to that. I mean, the basic premise of recovery is the same for everyone, but we all come at it from a different place because we're unique and individual. So I'm pretty proud of it, actually.
Yeah, you bloody should be. I think it's bloody fantastic.
Yeah. I'm a bit blown away. Sometimes I do pinch myself and go, okay, so where are we? What are we doing next year? We're hiring new people. We're getting bigger. We're all over Australia, our team are. So Jenny runs admin. We call her the mothership. She's up on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And she drives around like, you know, those Amy girls on the ad with the headpiece on, taking calls. And she's always, I actually have to say to her, stop emailing me at 2:00 in the morning. Like, I have to sleep sometimes. She's amazing. We have Kelsey down in Geelong. We have Audrey. We have Izzy. We have Rachel up in Brisbane. And we've got Ruby. She's in Bali at the moment. And then we have more people coming next year. And we record our sessions. And so we have this huge bank of over 35 2-hour sessions that families can go watch.
Wow.
And then we've got the podcast as well.
What about, before we get onto the podcast, what about people from overseas? Can they you just there, they can come as long as they're up at the right time. Yeah.
Anyone can come. We've got families from Perth, Darwin, all on different time zones. Sometimes families tune in from their car. Because it's all online, they can, you know, like one today in Stuck said, I can't type my answer in the chat box because I'm driving, and so I can only
listen.
I've got no camera, I can only listen. We have families from Canada, from New Zealand, from England, from everywhere.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we're worldwide, baby. We're everywhere.
Yeah, I'm bloody glad you are. No, I'm glad you are, because I'm sure every other country still has the same bloody issues. Tell us about the podcast. What's it called?
Well, the podcast is called Inside Door 2. Because Door 2 is all about, well, behind Door 1, we all know what you get there. You get mainstream treatment, you get with power, without power, you get voice without voice. Whereas we've turned it inside out and said, we're working from the inside out. We want to hear from the insiders about your experience so we can now understand that and then work together. Yes. So we were going to call it the Insiders, and Rachel, our dietitian, said, no, it needs to be Inside Door 2. Because people on the outside are going to want to know what happens inside Door 2.
Yeah.
What's in there? What's inside Door 2? So it's available on Spotify. We're looking at putting it on other platforms, but it drops every Wednesday, usually towards the night time, and it's got a really good mix in there, but it's really honest.
Yeah.
and
But that's what people need.
raw.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't sugarcoat it in there. The thing that we know about eating disorders is that it's a brutal experience for people. So we can't pretend that there's a simple answer, because there is not.
Yeah.
There is not. There's one treatment called family-based therapy that they roll out in every hospital, and it's basically saying to the parents, you do whatever you need to do to force your kid to eat. You cancel their life, you take their phone away, you do what you need to do, but if you don't bring that child back every week, and if they haven't gained another kilo, you're failing as a parent. That's it.
Fucking hell.
And then when the parents question it, they're told of the medical risks that they're posing to their child. So a bit like the Mormon religion, really. You don't get to go to heaven if you don't follow the rules. It follows the same premise. It doesn't make sense to me.
That's all, and everything in life, I reckon it's that this paternal fucking society that we're built is that I'm going to threaten you to do as your body is told, and then you live in fear that if you don't do it, you'll be excluded or rejected. You know, so we obey.
That's exactly how it works.
To the fucking tribe, and it gives you the shits, and people don't realise that you do not have to subscribe to that. You know, because there are a ton of other people that have been ejected from the tribe. So just hang out together and
that's
do the right
exactly
thing.
what we are at Door 2. We've all been ejected from the tribe. And I'm so grateful that we got ejected.
Yeah.
Because I would have lasted in FBT. I wouldn't have lasted more than a moment, because my child would not have done, even if I had cancelled her life, even if she had a mobile phone, because back then we didn't have them, she wouldn't have cared. It's all based on this premise that you have leverage over your child.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind of parent I am, and that's not the kind of parent I was ever going to be. So what FBT does is it takes parents and turns them into someone who their child doesn't recognise, and talk about trauma. And those parents are also traumatised because they think they are doing the right thing to change, you know, to save their child's life. Now, there are some FBT zealots out there. Good luck to you. If it works for your kid, go for it. But if it's not working for your child, come to Door 2 and we'll teach you a much kinder, more compassionate, empathic way to work together, because your child has rights.
Adios.
And you as the parent have rights, and you have the right to understand that there are other ways to recover. There's not only one way. There's not one religion. There's not one treatment for cancer. I can't think of another illness where we treat people with such contempt to say to them, if you don't listen to what I tell you, your child's going to die. You'll be back. You'll realise that I'm right and you're wrong. Who does that? And excludes them from treatment if they don't. Look, this is what we're offering here. If you don't like what we're offering, there's another church down the road you can go to. Off you go. But you're out of heaven, basically. And I don't understand why we don't have, why we're not up in arms about this treatment, because it is a violation of people's rights. And we do live in 2023, not 1903. I would understand it back then. I don't understand it in today's context. And there's no room for diversity in there. None at all. So
I can't believe we still exist like that. Like, when you're talking about, I'm thinking of, you know, Kew cottages and forcing people to have lobotomies, and you know that's the sort of stuff that's I know they're not bloody doing that, but it's the same principle of saying you've got no choice. I'm in control of your body. I'm going to do what I think's best for you, no matter how much pain I cause you. And the point is, people with eating disorders are already in pain. You can't heal pain with more pain. Like you heal pain with love. Like that's the only way you can
that's right.
get to pain. And anyway, yeah, all right. Now,
you work really well in Door 2 with zero qualifications, and your qualification is that you just love people unconditionally. I've got a little bit more going for me than that, and that is that I do understand what's going on inside their mind. I do understand the pathway to getting them to buy in to their own opportunity to recover. But that comes from my business thinking. You've got to bring people with you. You can't just force people into change. You've got to help them see that this is actually a good thing for you. And I'm going to walk slowly beside you as you go through that change. But what the hospital system does and what FBT does is it forces people to change. And then it says, okay, your weight restored now, so you've recovered, your brain is switched back on, and they relapse. And then they say, well, we've done everything that we've meant to have done. You failed. Your parents have failed. You failed. See you later.
Yeah.
And that's why we have such a crisis in eating disorders at the moment, because we have this one-size-fits-all approach. But now we've got door 2. So hopefully we can start the healing journey for some people, at least, who find us and who join us. Yeah.
I love it. So people can email you, what was it, help@door2.com.au? That was it?
Yeah, well, I'd give you Jenny's number, which is Jenny at
Well, she'll still be awake.
Well, she will. She never sleeps. She's got ADHD like the rest of us.
No, we'll just get emails or do email.
So it's actually help@door2.com.au or Jenny at door2, Jenny with 2 N's, Y, at door2.com.au. And the podcast is Inside Door 2, and you'll find that on Spotify. I did destroy our website accidentally and turned it into sort of a landing page, but we are getting a new website. It's just not top priority for me at the moment.
But it still works. So that's door2.com.
Yeah.
And by the way, we should say that door 2 is the number 2. So door2 number 2.com.au. That website still works because I just checked it out.
Yeah, just whatever you do, stay away from door 1. It's a bit scary, right? So if it's got a number 1 on it, move to number 2. I love it. We've had families email us and say we'd like to join door 3. One wanted to join door 8. And we have the best laugh because we go, we're not up to 8 yet. We're still working on 2.
I love it. And but you're also on Instagram too as well.
Yeah.
And that is door 2 eating disorders, if I can remember right. Yeah.
It's just all one word, door 2 eating disorders, and Facebook is door 2 eating disorder recovery. And recovery for me, I do not know how to change the handle on one to be the same as the other. So just go to Insta. Just go to Insta, door 2 eating disorders.
I looked it up on Facebook and couldn't find it. So
yeah.
So
I think it's door 2 eating disorder recovery on Facebook. And I don't know why they're different, because I did do that tech accelerator course, but like my high school, I failed. And they looked at me in despair and went, it's a good thing she's got a good idea. Yeah. So when it comes to tech, it's not my thing. Yeah.
No, well, it doesn't matter.
I'm good at coming up with the ideas, not good at implementing them. Yeah.
Yeah. But that doesn't matter. We've got Insta, we've got the website, we've got the podcast, and we've got help@door2.com.au, and we've got lovely Jenny, who's up all night answering emails. Every time you email her, Jenny at door2.com.au.
Yeah, and Jenny is, I've got to say, she is the mothership. She is hovering everywhere, waiting to take your email or your call. She's going to kill me.
You should all send her emails.
Yeah, she will. She'll murder me.
Yeah, good she is.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Jan, I've absolutely loved this conversation.
It's been awesome.
Love your work. You know I do. I just think we've been meaning to do this podcast for bloody, 2 years now. But anyway, doesn't matter. We've done it. And I love what you're doing. I love the love that you put into your work. I love the kindness and where you come from. I think it's there were more people doing that, the world would be a much better place. So thank you for playing your part in that. And your small corner of the world that isn't quite so small, really, when you think about
No.
the ripple effect.
I do have to say that if you are feeling lonely out there or feeling like you can't do something, you absolutely can. Get along, get off the bench,
Yeah.
go join a men's club, go join a bowling club. Just keep trying to find your tribe. If you've got an eating disorder, if you're parents of someone with an eating disorder or carers, we've got a partner in there, just, reach out to us at Door 2. You're not on your own. There's this amazing community of people who will take care of you. And I don't want anyone to feel alone in this. That's probably one of the worst things, is that families come to us. And one mum sat there at her first group with us and just burst into tears and said, I've been so alone.
Yeah.
I've felt so isolated. And thankfully she doesn't now. So, we could just start Door 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Karen, for all the different groups that we need to create safe spaces for people to come into and feel included. And look, my great wish is that we'd all stop looking at each other with judgment, and we'd start looking at each other with love and acceptance, and recognise that Jesus was black. Yeah, he was. Yeah. I'm sticking to my guns there.
Well, at least he had olive skin anyway. We're not too sure. We're not too sure where he sat on the spectrum there, but he had.
Well, he was
olive
born
skin
in Jerusalem, so he didn't have my colouring. He would have got burnt to a crisp. So can the Mormons just get that bit right?
Well, not just the Mormons, all of them. All of them.
Yeah, like he's not a white man. He's not. And to say to a 13-year-old that people of colour can't join the church because they, carry the mark of Cain, just didn't make sense to me. And I'm so glad I've got that rebellious duck inside my mind, which is, that doesn't make sense. So I've always been someone who's loved everyone and just wants everyone to be in my tribe, in my village. And that's really what we have in the world. We have this opportunity to be in this life together and to just really listen and understand where every single person's coming from. And boy, what a rich life you'll have if you do that. Yeah. Your life will get better and better. Yeah. Yeah.
And every single person on the planet has a story, has a backstory. Every single person.
Yeah, they do.
Yep.
And for anyone out there who thinks that they might be less than equal, less worthy, you're not. You're absolutely worthy. You're worthy because you are, because you exist. You don't become worth more as you go through life and you achieve and you get houses and cars and stuff like that. That doesn't alter your worth. Your worth is finite. It's there when you're born. It's there when you die. And it doesn't change through life.
It's your existence, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your worth is your existence. Yeah.
Your worth is because you are. That's a bit philosophical, I know, but it doesn't alter. What alters are our judgments, our perceptions. And they're not particularly helpful things because they're not based on fact.
Well, judgments, perceptions, and expectations, those three are just a dirty little trio, really.
Yeah, they are a dirty. I like that. I'm putting that into Door 2.
Go on.
Dirty little trio. The dirty little trio. That'll be attributed to you, Karen.
Oh, that's fine.
We have we have a beautiful, beautiful mentor in Door 2. Her name is Lauren. And she's taught everybody in Door 2 to look for sparkle moments because they're everywhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And she said one night when we were talking about trying to find acceptance from others, and she said, you can be the juiciest peach in the world, but there'll always be someone who doesn't like peaches.
Exactly.
And it's just stuck with us. We use it all the time in door two.
Yeah.
And she's studying nursing at the moment. And she's someone who's struggled to see her worth as an equal. We've forced it onto her now, Karen.
Yeah.
We've forced her to accept that she's
We've
an
just
equal.
spent the whole podcast talking about not forcing, but that's good. Let's
but
finish.
we
let's
have
finish on a
forced equality and worthiness on you, Lauren. But what I've discovered is that those people who feel less worthy go out of their way to build others up.
Yep.
At their own expense.
Yep.
And they need to come back and they need to take care of themselves first and foremost, and then take care of others. Yeah.
Yeah. Fill your cup up first. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. There's a lot of truth in the oxygen mask. So whatever they call it. Concept, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm just going back to our dirty little trio so I can remember to write it all
Judgment,
down.
perceptions, expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think we could go on the Oprah show. Does that still exist?
Oprah would love it. I should get right into it, I reckon.
Well, it's true. It's true. They're all things that are not based on truth. In fact, they're based on
your interpretation of something that's based, comes from a belief of some bloody thing that's been plotted into you from some experience that you've interpreted different. It's if we really stopped and thought, and most of the time we don't, because we don't want to dig deep into the truth, because then we might have to face some vulnerability and pain. But the truth is, most of what we bloody think is completely fucking wrong. It's just we're driven by this whole this belief system that is not accurate. And I always say to people, is that belief true or perceived? And they're like, no, or it's true. It's a true belief. I said, but the outcome of it and everything else, is it perceived? Yeah.
Well, one of the things that we've had the privilege of learning about is the internal narrative of people's minds as they share that with us. And I always like to say, we call it the negative mind because it's negative, it's fearful, it's mistrusting of the outside world, and it's there to protect you. It's meant to tell you to check for cars, but it actually says, don't be part of life, it's too scary. And I always say the loudest voice doesn't make it right. Just makes it loud. It's just the loudest. And you listen for the small voice, the one that is waiting respectfully to be heard for its turn, not the one that's talking over the top of everyone and screaming to be heard and bullying its way through. But also the cruel voice doesn't make it right. It just makes it cruel.
But it's always the one that gets
we're really
go on.
It's the squeaky wheel, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the squeaky wheel.
Always gets the rewards. A bit of oil. Yeah, always. Yeah, I agree with you. I remember some. I can't think what it was. This anyway, it was this type of concept that imagine all these, and this is not a black and white. It's not a racist sort of thing, but all these dark, negative sort of little bodies inside you. Like a gathering. Do you know what I mean? And all these little dark energies. And they're all saying, oh, you're too fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, you're useless, you're fuck, that, you're all that shit. And it's this concept of this. There's one little white one in there that's just a pure little thought, in there. Find that one. Find that one. Like look through all the shit till you find that one and listen. What's that one saying? And it's like what you're saying. Find that little voice,
I like to describe our authentic self. As sometimes being so beaten down, we're carrying behind the chair. And all we can see is the chair. We can't see that the self is in that fetal position behind. But always know that the authentic self is there. So even if the behaviour that you're seeing is really hard to take and hard to understand and confusing, look beyond the behaviour and you're going to see the authentic self there, afraid, beaten down, yelled at, screamed at, oppressed. Reach out to that person, reach out to that part of the self.
Yeah.
Don't engage too much with the behavior, because the behavior is the decoy.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Agree.
So, and they're things that I learned in teaching. You know, I had a long career in teaching before I moved over to eating disorders. And I remember this one time, the great Mr. Butters, he'd come back from being a school principal, and he was a grade 6 teacher. And the only reason why Mr. Butters was a grade 6 teacher was the only one that could control the boys. And so I was taking the grade 6 for 2 days because Mr. Butters was going to be away, and he sat me down. He said, I'm going to have to give you the rundown. I said, no, I've got it. And he goes, no, you don't understand, Jen. They're going to murder you. And I said, no, they won't. He goes, oh, the cocky young ones, they think they know everything. I wasn't a young one. And I said, I think I've got it. He said, now this one, you've got to bolt him down quick. You've got to take his lunch away, and you've got to do this. I walked in with a newspaper. I sat down and started reading the newspaper and waited. They were chucking chairs. They were changing seats. They were out of control. I just read the newspaper. Then I got my cup of coffee. Then I put my feet up on the table, and they said, you're not allowed to do that. I said, I can do anything I like. It's a classroom. You're demonstrating that. I'm just, I'm doing my own thing. And eventually one of the girls came up and said, are you going to teach the class? And I said, well, it depends. Are you guys happy for me to teach the class? And she said, not really. We don't want to be here. And I said, well, I don't really want to be here either. It's pretty crap. Anyway, she said, well, you have to call the roll because we're going to take it over to the office. So I called the roll. And they're all answering to the wrong name. So I said, well, I was going to play a game of continuous cricket today, but I guess we can't do that because I don't know who you are. So they all swapped seats and went back. And then they quieted down. And then they said, do you even want to be here? And I said, not really. Why would I want to be here when you're all treating me like a piece of crap? How about we hit reset? We sit down, have a conversation with each other, find out a bit about who we are, and we'll take it from there. And the big boys said, well, we want to know that we're going to be playing continuous cricket. And I said, well, really, that's up to you, not up to me. If you're not able to control your behaviour, you can't go out in the oval with a cricket bat and a ball. You're dangerous.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were all settled down and sitting at the desks and, can we do anything to help by recess time? And we had a great 2 days. So Mr. Butters came back and expected half the kids to have been expelled, but they were all sitting at the desk and they'd all completed their work, and we'd had a couple of games of continuous cricket and happy days. And he said, how did you do it? And I said, oh, it's called skill. As a skill as a human being, looking into human behaviour. Why do people behave the way they do? They expected me to come in there and lay the law down and tell them they couldn't do anything, and I didn't do that. So I took them by surprise. Then they were curious about, well, why hasn't she done that yet? So they started leaning in and listening and going, well, when's she going to come down heavy on us? Well, maybe she's not going to. So the whole 2 days was about being curious and trying to find out who I was as a person, rather than me go in there and just yell and scream at them and tell them off and put them all in detention.
Yeah.
So I always, as a teacher, I always underdid my role as a teacher and waited for them to show me who they were and what they needed, and it worked.
Yeah.
And those basic premises are what we do in Door 2. It is, we're here to listen and we're here to help you. We're not going to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
That's not our role. So, but we'll work with you on it. And it's more of an invitation to really be collaborative.
Yeah.
And work together. So I
love it.
It's a good place. I couldn't last anymore in the mainstream system. I was going to get sacked. Basically, the school principal came to me one day and said, I believe you called me a dickhead behind my back. And I said, no. If I think you're a dickhead, I'll tell you to your face. I'm not gonna say it behind your back. Right? So no, that's not true. And whoever said that I said it, they're trying to throw me under the bus, and yeah, that's not good. So I've always been someone who's put flags on the roof of the school, done things differently, gotten attention for the school, and that can rock the feathers of the mainstream door one people. It can. It makes them feel threatened and vulnerable, especially when 16 kids out of my grade are getting scholarships and none out of theirs, and everyone wants their kid in my grade. That makes them feel defensive. So I was kind of used to it when I moved into the eating disorder space, and it's just continued on. I'm the most hated woman in Texas, Karen.
Oh, who cares? I'm glad you like you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you've got to be prepared to ruffle a few feathers along the way, and that's about being authentic and true to who you are, and speaking up for the people who you need to speak up for and be an advocate for. Yeah,
because they need you. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah,
they do. But they have got their own voices.
Yeah,
they have, and they do find them. And that's important, that we don't speak for people, but we help people speak for themselves and create pathways for them to be heard.
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking, I better go because
we better go. We've been waffling on for hours now.
I better go and be nice to the teenager now. You've convinced me.
How long do you have to cut this podcast down to?
I'm not cutting it down. I haven't got time for that shit. It's just going out. I haven't got time to edit.
Oh, you don't have time to edit. We've waxed lyrical. We've wandered all over the countryside. It
is
well,
what it is.
I guess when you get old, you have lots of stories to tell, don't you?
You bloody oath you do. Yeah.
And it's evidence of a rich life lived well, I think.
I reckon too. And the wrinkles. I reckon every wrinkle tells a bloody story. There's a story.
My stomach is covered in scars from cesareans, appendix, bowel operations, 2 hip replacements. I'm like Edward Scissorhands, but it's all part of my story.
Yeah, that's what I reckon too.
Yeah.
All
right, lovely talking to you, Kim. We'll have to have you on our podcast now.
Yeah, I think I've been on once, haven't I? No, not on your podcast.
I know you came in and did a door-to session. We need to do a podcast and talk about get off the bench and everything else.
All right, let's do it.
All right. See ya.
Right. Okay, see ya. Bye-bye. Ta-da.